In this video, we're going to look at Eureka, Grade 7, Module 4, Lesson 5, and we're going to go all the way up to Lesson 10, and we're going to review some problems in the problem set. Okay, let's start with this one, number 3. A snowmobile manufacturer claims that his new model is 15% lighter than last year's model. So whenever I do these problems, I always put the heavier or the bigger or the more plentiful variable on top. Okay, so if the new model is lighter than last year's, I put last year's on top, and I put the newer model. And later on, they refer to this as this year's model on the bottom, because I know it's lighter. The new model is 15% lighter than last year's model. So that means we start with last year's model, which is going to be at 100% of its weight. And as we move down to get to the newer model, we lose 15%, because the new model, which is where we're headed towards, is lighter. It is 15% lighter than last year's model. So we start with last year's model, we lose 15%, and we get to this year's model, which is going to be 85% of last year's. Okay, what else do they tell us? If this year's model weighs 79 pounds, okay, I stop right there. I don't even move any further. This year is 799 pounds. How much did last year's model? Whenever I see the words how much, how many, I know that what I'm going to set X to is going to follow. How much did last year's model? So what's going to be X? Last year's. Last year's. Okay. So now we set up our equation. We know that the newer equals 799, but we also know that the newer equals 85% of last year's. Of means times. We know how to handle this. First thing we do is we set, instead of the percent sign, we divide by 100. We'll add an x over 1. Now we'll add a 1 underneath the 799. This becomes 85x over 100. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you have two fractions facing each other with an equal sign in between. That is a license to cross multiply. When we do that, we're going to multiply 1 times 85x. We're going to put the all-important equal sign in between, and then we're going to do 100 minus 79. I'm sorry, 100 times 799. Okay, now, this stays as 85x. We're multiplying by 100. We're multiplying. That means by definition, this number is going to get bigger. Okay, so I'm going to put the number down. How much bigger is it going to get? We're multiplying by 100. So we're going to add 2 zeros. Divide by 85. And when we do that in a calculator or using long division, we get 940 pounds. And that, recall, we had as last year's model. Last year's model. So let's just make sure we answer the question completely and correctly. How much did last year's model weigh? That's all they asked us for, so we are all set. Okay, let's go to number 9. Okay, so we have an animal shelter with cats and dogs. There are 25% more cats than dogs. Okay, remember, when we had, in problem 3, than last year's model, we started with last year's model, we moved to the new model, and we got 15% lighter. Okay, Watch what we do here now. There are 25% more cats than dogs. Okay, so the first thing I know is that there's more cats than dogs. So I set up my drawing with cats up higher because there's more of them. 25% more cats than dogs. Okay, so we start with the variable that comes after the word than. We start at dogs. Okay, so here's 100% dogs. 100% of the dogs. Then, as we move up, we are adding 25% of the dogs until we get to cats. And by the time we get to cats, we now have 125% of the number of dogs. You start with the than, whatever follows the than, which is the dogs. 25% more than, so you're going to add 25% of the original variable. So now by the time you get to cats, you have 125% of the dogs. Okay, now they tell you there's 40 cats. So let's put that in. Cats, or C, equals 40. How many dogs are there? How many? Stop right there. The next variable is going to be your X. Okay, so now let's put this together. We're trying to find X. Okay, we know that cats equals 40. And we also know that cats equals 125% of the dogs. And we know that dogs is our X. So we're going to write 40 equals 125% of means times X. You know how to handle this. How do we do that? We change the percent sign to division by 100. We put X as X over 1, and we put 40 as 40 over 1. 40 over 1 equals 125x over 100. We cross multiply because we have two fractions facing each other with an equal sign in between. We're going to have 40 times 100 equals 125x times 1. We are now going to have a number after we multiply by 100, this number is going to get bigger. How much bigger? By 2 zeros. Equals 125x. X is then going to be 125. 4,000 divided by 125. And our final answer is going to be x equals 32. Now, what did we have x assigned to? Go back up here. Oops. X equals the number of dogs. So the number of dogs is going to be, the number of dogs is going to be 32. Number of cats is 40. So the total is going to be 40 cats plus 32 dogs equals 72. Okay, let's take a look now at the problem. How many are there in total? Okay, so we're all set. Okay, we are now going to move to lesson 7. I apologize for this delay in getting there. Problem set. less than 7. We're going to do 2a as in alpha. Okay. The sign says that the price marked on all music equipment is 30% off the original price. You buy an electric guitar for the sale price of $315. What was the original price? Okay, so let's back up now that we have a sense of what's going on. So let's take some notes here. All music equipment is 30% off the original. Okay, so all 30% off the original. Okay. You buy an electric guitar for a sale price of $315. When you see sale price, that means the final price. That means after the 30% off has been applied. A sale means you get something for less than it usually is. Okay, so I'm going to write the sale price is $315. And another way to write that is final. Okay, what is the original? What is? As soon as you see words like what is, how much, how many, the variable that follows is going to be x. Okay. So the original is going to equal x. All right, so let's put all this together. Okay. You have an original price, which is x, and that's going to be higher. I'm going to put that up above. Then the sale price is going to be lower, or the final price, because we're dealing with a discount situation. So x is the original. It starts out higher. Then, as we move down from the original to get to the sale price, we take 30% off of the original. So by the time we get down to the sale price, what do we have? We have 70% of the original. So this is what we're going to work with. They tell us that the sale price is $315. So we have two pieces of information about the sale price. The first thing is that we know it's $315. And the second thing we know is it's 70% of the original. Well, what do we use for the original? X. And why do we use X? Because it follows the word what is the original price. That means that's what we're looking for. Okay, so here we go. We're trying to find X. 70% of means times X. So we use the two pieces of information about the sale price. Number one, they tell us that it's $315. Number two, they tell us to get from the original to the sale price, we lose 30% of the original, which means we only have 70% of the original. So we take advantage of those two facts to set up an equation. Now we know how to handle this. We take 315 equals 70 over 100 times x over 1. We put a 1 underneath the 315. We're moving towards the enviable position of having two fractions that face each other with an equal sign in between, because we know that is a license to cross multiply. And there it is, two fractions facing each other with an equal sign in between. Now we're going to cross multiply. We're going to have 315 times 100 equals 70x times 1. We are multiplying a number by 100. We're multiplying, not dividing. We know that that number is going to get bigger. How much bigger? 2 zeros, because we're multiplying by 100. find x, we divide 70 by both sides. To make our lives easier, we can cross off that 0. And we're going to end up with x equal to 450. That's the original price. Okay, let's go back up here. I remember this was a multi-part question. How much money did you save off of the original price? How much money did you save off? Okay, so now we have the original is 450. The final, remember I put the bigger number on top. The final, or the sale, recall, was 315. Sorry. Okay, I know I blocked you out there for a second, so let me redo that. Okay, they want to know how much off there was. Wait a minute, let me go back. How much money did you save off of the original price? Okay, so a certain amount of money, as you moved from the original to the sale price, a certain amount of money came off. We'll call that the new X. How much money came off? Well, 315 plus this amount has to get you back here. So one way to write this is to say One way to write this is to say 315 plus x equals 450. Or x plus 315 equals 450. X is going to equal 450 minus 315. Now I know that was probably intuitive for many of you, but this is the way you would set this up with an equation. And once you did that, you would get the amount you saved as $135. Okay, so this is what you saved. Okay. Let's go part C. What percent of the original price is the sale price? Okay, so we're going to do a standard translation here. Okay. What percent of the original price is the sale price? So let me write down the players here. We had an original price of $450. We had a sale price of $315. Okay, so here we go. What percent? As soon as you see words like what, how much, whatever variable that follows words like that is our x. So what percent? What becomes x? And then you have percent. So here we go. What percent? What percent? You write it exactly like it says it. Okay, next, of times the original price. Here it is, $450. Is equals the sale price. Here it is. Ladies and gentlemen, there's your equation. We replace the percent sign with division by 100, just like we do if that was an integer. We put 450 over 1. We put 315 over 1. We are moving towards the beautiful position of having two fractions facing each other with an equal sign in between them. That is a license to cross multiply. Two fractions, equal sign in between. That's what we're going to do. So 450x times 1 equals 315 times 100. We know this number is going to get bigger. How much bigger? 2 zeros. Cross off some of these zeros to make our math easier. And when you do the math, you get x equals 70. Therefore, when they ask you what percent of the original is the sale price, answer is 70%. There's your answer.